New concerns tonight about moves towards what some call a North American Union. A number of high-level government meetings are taking place in Mexico to discuss North American integration of Mexico, the United States, and Canada. More meetings are scheduled. It is an aggressive agenda proposed at the highest levels of our government and U.S. commerce without congressional or voter oversight.
Critics say the plan would greatly benefit Mexico, but could mean the loss of American jobs and an increase in social costs to U.S. taxpayers.
The reality is that last year they came close to passing a bill which would have allowed close to 100 million immigrants into the country, most of them low-skilled, over the next 20 years. That will, in fact, bankrupt the United States.
Dollar drop. We're coming into a cyclical bottom for gold, and it rises going into December, January, so that might be the reverse of the dollar fall. Apart from that, I think one thing people who are dollar-based need to focus on is the Amero. That's the one thing that nobody's talking about, but I think it's going to have a big impact on everybody's life in Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. If you Google it, you'll find out all about it.
It's a deal that few have even heard of.
It's being done again by very few people at the very top on behalf of the investment class, but the working class of people, political officials across our country, from communities, from cities and so forth, they don't know anything about this.
This isn't some trade agreement. It is a total removal of sovereignty from these countries, which will also result in a completely new currency called the Amero.
Because the United States is being foreclosed on. And we talked about this 2 years ago when the Bilderbergers all met, and 2 years ago we talked about how they were going to wipe out the housing market and the subprime market. And this is, once again, George, this isn't psychic power. This is people paying attention. This is listening to alternative media. This is understanding that when 600 of the richest people in the world get together and say they're going to do something, they ain't just whistling Dixie. Very minor brief history lesson. 1913, the Federal Reserve comes in. They pass the federal income tax. The Fed begins to flood the markets with cheap capital, which funds the Roaring Twenties and Calvin Coolidge and the whole nine yards. They then stop printing money, and when they stop printing money, that's when the entire federal government goes bankrupt in 1933. They go bankrupt to the privately owned Federal Reserve, and what you're seeing today, this is what's happening to the Europeans. With the Europeans, they were dumb enough to form this European Union about 12 years or so ago. They formed a central bank in Europe. They started printing euros, cheap capital all across Europe. Everybody was happy, big economic boom, and now they've stopped printing euros, and the French are in trouble, the Spanish are already bankrupt, the Italians are going broke. They just laid off something like 30,000 people in Europe, in Germany, actually. And I said over and over and over again, this is the Mayan fifth night. This is the year of Armageddon, to watch Italy, watch Germany, watch the reactions of these markets, and that when the euro hit $1.52, stuff in Europe would start to break. And I'm usually the optimistic one that says, look, it's going to be okay if we just ride this out. But I don't see where this ends outside of a complete fiscal collapse. Well, here's where it ends, George, and let me throw some conspiracy theory in there for you.
Do you have anything good to say?
Well, they're printing the Amero right now in Denver.
By default of this agreement, the American Constitution will eventually be obsolete. You would think that a situation like this would be on the cover of every major newspaper. That is until you realize that the people who are behind this movement are the same people behind the mainstream media, and you are not told what you're not supposed to know. The North American Union is the same concept as the European Union, the African Union, and the soon-to-be Asian Union, and the same people are behind all of them. And, when the time is right, the North American Union, the European Union, the African Union, and the Asian Union will be merged together, forming the final stages of a plan these men have been working on for over 60 years. A one-world government. one bank, one army, one center of power. And if we have learned anything from history, it is that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Trilateral Commission exists, and it's a, quote, conspiracy of ideas. This is an ideological battle. Some people believe in globalism, others of us believe in national sovereignty.
We had a worldview, Republican and Democratic presidents alike, from Harry Truman to George Bush. President Bush said, and it's a phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order.
I grew up in is gone. And maybe it's gone forever if we don't wake up now. McCain said last night, was anybody stunned by, I want to buy up all the bad mortgages so there would be no foreclosures? As outrageous as that was, bad news for you, gang, that's already in the bailout bill. Believe it or not, Paulson can do that. He doesn't have to even ask you anymore. There is a global meltdown coming. It is a global depression, and one world currency and one world financial system is the end game. China said last week they want one global currency. France said yesterday or the day before that they want one world order, a new world order, at the end of this event.
What's been the recipe for our recent success? Our unity, coordination, the will to move forward. We can't give up faced with this crisis.
EU members have put pressure on the United States for an early meeting of the G8 with emerging countries. Europe wants to present a blueprint for a new worldwide currency system. Europe wants to present a blueprint for a new worldwide currency system.
That I often use myself, that we needed a new world order.
There is a chance the President of the United States to use this disaster to carry out what his father, a phrase his father used, I think, only once, and hasn't been used since, and that is a new world order. New world coming. America will become increasingly vulnerable to hostile attack on our homeland, and our military superiority will not entirely protect us. Americans will likely die on American soil, possibly in large numbers.
And people talked then, in 1990, of a new world order. And it's only now that we can begin to understand that the world order that globalization brings and what it's going to look like, it's driven forward now not just by the balance of military strength, the Cold War times, or ordinary political power. It's being driven forward by a seismic shift in economic power that we see around us.
And the hope that each of us has to build a new world order. To build a new world order.
Democratic presidential hopeful laid out his vision for America's place in a new world order, saying he was speaking as a proud citizen of the United States and fellow citizen of the world.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society. It's so secret we can't talk about it. What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go wild.
I'm sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the web.
Number 322?
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us? Not much, because it's a secret.
And before us, the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order. A world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations.
The way we're going to win over the long term is not just militarily. We've got to win over hearts and minds. And what that means is we've got to invest in countries that have no educational infrastructure, give them a stake in creating the kind of world order that I think all of us would like to see.
Bilderberg is a meeting of powerful centrist industrialists and politicians. They always meet in secret once a year in a five-star hotel with golfing facilities, which is what Bilderberg is into by and large, the idea of a one-world community, a new world order.
Will be the emergence of a new international order,
Within the next 4 years, we will see the emergence of a new international order.
The beginning.